Hardy fiber cement siding is proven to withstand water, pests, and fire better than wood-based siding. And it looks better while doing it. Hardy siding has been chosen for 10 million homes and counting. See the proof at jameshardy.com.
So, dude, it's the 8th of March, 2013. Here we are, another Friday Night Fiasco on the Sackheads Radio Show. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing really good. I was just, I'm sorry, I was just over here with my head down. I have a little hobby. I create my own special Lego figures sometimes, and I just created this one. Anyways,
and it is a miraculous job you've done on that.
It is. Yeah, I'm not even going to go into what it is, but it's I like this one.
No, and it's lifelike. That's the most amazing part, is you nailed it.
It's very lifelike.
So much to talk about this week.
We do?
Yeah, I think so.
Huh. How have you been?
I'm doing good. You know, I really can't complain. It's been a good week. It's gone along nicely. The weather's been good, so...
You've been catching any of the spring training games?
I have been.
Network?
I have been. So I'm very excited about that. Baseball is right around the corner. The spring training's in full swing, but the actual season's about to start. You know me, I get amped up for that, being a huge Red Sox fan.
You've been wearing all your paraphernalia. How are the Sox doing this year?
So far, so good.
How about the Red Sox?
Oh, I think they're going to do well also.
Okay.
I thought you meant my socks, because I've been watching them well.
No, your socks are fine. It has been an awesome week.
It has been.
For us.
For us.
I was, we've talked about Hillsdale College before.
Absolutely.
And, Hillsdale College, if you don't know who they are a private college. They take no federal or state tax dollars, so they really control their curriculum. It's an outstanding program, and they actually have online classes free.
Yeah, I know, and they're amazing. I've taken a couple of them so far.
They're great. They have 4 classes available right now, and they're free. And I've taken the first 3, and I've actually signed up for the one that's going on now. The first one is Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution. Then there's Constitution 201, the progressive rejection of the founding era and the rise of bureaucratic despotism. There's History 101, Western Heritage, from the Book of Genesis to John Locke. And the current one they're running is History 102, American Heritage, from the colonial settlement to the Reagan Revolution. And even though the first 3 courses have passed their live status, they are archived, and you can go in and sign up for these classes at go to no www, but it's online.hillsdale.edu. And they're phenomenal classes. Their president is Dr. Larry Arnn. He was a research person with Winston Churchill's authorized biographer, president of the college. He's a phenomenal individual. I've heard him speak a couple times. Had an opportunity to speak with him personally on a couple occasions.
Dude, how do you meet all these awesome people?
I don't know. Actually, I don't know. but he's very nice. Anyways, we, Sackheads Radio, are fortunate enough to be able to partner with Hillsdale. And the way we're doing that is they actually offer a Constitution Minute, where they started this just a couple weeks ago, where they put out just these 1-minute, almost like a public service announcement kind of thing.
Right.
Where it's actually just a 1-minute tidbit on the Constitution. We were in contact with Hillsdale this week. We are fortunate enough to be able to incorporate those into our show now. So listen up for those during the commercial breaks. And as Hillsdale releases those, we will be updating them and incorporating them into our shows during the commercial breaks. Also, we are going to be updating our webpage, and we are going to have archived copies of the Constitution Minutes on our site. So anybody that misses them on the breaks or whatnot can always go to our site, click on it, and listen to the archived Constitution Minutes.
And we'll throw them on iTunes and everywhere else that you can get our feeds. So
yeah, whatever our feeds in, it'll be in there. Also, just like our streaming show live, they'll be in there. Also, you're going to be able to access Hillsdale's online courses, their webpage, through our site. They're going to be getting us a banner. We're going to put that up, so we'll be able to access those programs, those classes, through our site as well. So
SackheadsRadio.com, dude. Well, how great is that?
I think it's great. Oh, another thing, the best part. I forgot the best part. In end of May or beginning of June, somewhere around that time, commencement is, I believe, May 11th.
May 11th. I wasn't even close.
No, it's okay. You pretty much you tried to guess and you nailed it. But after commencement, Dr. Larry Arnn has agreed to come on the show as a guest.
So we have that coming down the line. Wow,
so,
that's huge, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm very excited. So that's the news I have for our radio show thus far.
Yeah, I mean for us that's I would say if you haven't taken the classes, you have to go to the Hillsdale College website and sign up for the free classes. They are exceptional.
And what I like about them, what I love about them is I'm a huge primary source guy, and the classes are presented and the reading materials, they supply the readings online that you can get. Of course, you can also get the textbook if you want. I don't remember, $50 or whatever. Of course, I purchased it just because it's all primary source documents.
Right.
I'm not here to sell anything, but it's primary source material that you're reading from. So you're reading, the founders' writings and speeches. You're reading Woodrow Wilson's writings and speeches, Reagan's and Lincoln's. So it's all primary source. It's not somebody else's interpretation of that, which is what I love and why I think the courses are so valuable. I mean, regardless of your political leanings.
No, it's one of those things where you should educate yourself.
Absolutely.
You should do it from the source. You should do it exactly how it was meant to be.
Right. Primary source is primary source.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing to argue about. It's not pushing a specific agenda or whatnot. It's the study of these primary source materials, and I really like it. So we're fortunate enough to be able to help Hillsdale in getting this education out there, in hopefully making this information more accessible to people, including our listeners and so forth. Make the access to the information easier. They don't have to go to Hillsdale's site. They can go to our site.
SackheadsRadio.com and just click off of it.
Absolutely.
It's one of those things, we talk about it all the time. So to be able to put our money where our mouth is, so to speak, and say, hey, you know what, if you don't believe us, here's your chance. If you don't think that we're interpreting the Constitution the way that it should be, here's your chance to educate yourself, learn the Constitution the way it's supposed to be. No federal funding, so there's no leaning one way or the other. It's just straight Constitution, how it should be. And you can, and this is where I learned a lot of the Constitution stuff from, and updated and things I didn't know, and a little bit of history on it, and why certain things were written certain ways. And so for me, it was educational. I had read the Constitution a million times before that, but the history behind the Constitution, why certain writings were done a certain way, and why we have certain steps in our way of government in our Constitutional Republic as it is, it was just unbelievable. It's a great website, and I'll tell you, the amount of information that they're giving you for goose egg for free, outstanding.
And I'll tell you that the course that I actually learned probably the most from so far, just because I have done a lot of study on the Constitution and the progressive movement and so forth. But their History 101 class, their Western Heritage class, I actually learned a lot from, because it literally takes you from the Book of Genesis in the beginnings all the way up through John Locke, which is crucial to understanding kind of that Western culture and where this our belief system kind of evolved and came from believing in the Greeks and their many gods to kind of a singular God, and that evolving into the Western culture that we now actually carried on through today. And so that was the course that I actually learned the most from, for me personally. But they're all good, and we're just, again, fortunate to bring them, and very fortunate to have Dr. Arn commit to coming on the show after commencement. So, like I said, end of May or beginning of June is when we hope to have that happen.
Man, we're popping up everywhere. I was on the Andrea Kaye show earlier this week.
Yes?
Which, if
How
you
is Andrea? I haven't talked to her.
Love Andrea.
So long. Love her.
Love listening to her show, Financial News and Talk. She is just outstanding. So that was a fun call for me. We go back and forth with Rooster from Conservative Outcry. We have the thing going on with Hillsdale. We may visit another show coming up here this week.
Next week.
Is it next week?
It's next week.
Okay.
This week's almost over.
Well, all right, fine. You got me in a technicality.
Yeah, no, it's not a technicality. The calendar, pretty much, if you look at it, take a look right over there on the wall. You see how the calendar runs?
I don't care.
It's
I'm
next
not turning
week.
my head. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
But Wednesday night.
Yeah.
So we're going to push that out once we verify with everybody. By the way, if you haven't checked out the Exceptional Conservative Show.
Why would you push them right now?
Because they're awesome. Why
they
wouldn't
are
they
awesome.
be?
I'm just curious what made you think of them.
Oh, man. It's just, John Grant earlier, you and I have both been on Andrea. It's good stuff. We're glad you guys are enjoying it and helping us out. And we're going to keep trying to bring you the same lousy programming that we bring you every Friday night.
What are you talking about? This is good, clean family entertainment.
Good,
right here.
clean family entertainment.
Hey, take a look at my Lego guy.
Dude, your Lego guy is fantastic.
He is awesome. So, anything much going on this week?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you. We should have did a 3-hour show.
Are we gonna a 3-hour tour? You mean?
A 3-hour tour.
We can't sing. Don't even.
We have so many to start. Where do you want to start?
I want to start with the letter that 30 Republicans sent to Boner and Can't Do.
Yeah.
Did I mispronounce their names?
No, I
apologize.
I love it.
I apologize. Hang on. Let me check my notes. Oh, Boehner and Cantor. Okay. My apologies. So the letter that these 30 Republicans sent to Boner and Can't Do, I did it again.
You got to stop that.
I know. I can't help it. To defund Obamacare.
I think that's a marvelous idea.
Well,
have we done it yet?
They've been talking about it for a while, but some House Republicans actually sent this bill to Boehner and said, "Hey, so I have an idea. Why don't we actually defund Obamacare until we can actually get the votes to completely overturn it?" And Boehner, of course, is kind of non-committal on it.
What?
I know, it's weird.
He's usually such a stand-up, just solid, I'm going to make up my mind and go with it guy.
Well, let me quote some of the letter. Some of the letter says, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, which is known as Obamacare,
right,
remains broadly unpopular across America. More and more Americans are now feeling its impact, from job losses and part-time downgrades to insurance policy changes and violations of religious liberties to state budget strains from Medicaid expansions. And Americans don't like these impacts. Most Americans still believe that health care should be controlled by patients and doctors, not by the government. So the conservatives say they want to restart these efforts to repeal Obamacare in its entirety. In the meantime, there is more Congress can do, including the defunding on it. Congress has power, folks.
Purse
Congress
strings
is pretty powerful. Yeah, they control the purse strings.
Well, they should. Let me
And,
rephrase that. They should control the purse strings.
Breitbart.com actually wrote a story on it, and they actually listed out all 30 of the representatives who signed the letter, and I'd like to give those representatives credit on the air right now, because I think it's incredibly brave to stand up to leadership in the party, and really, we've talked about this. The Conservative Party, or it's not the Conservative Party, it's the Republican Party, and
yeah,
we have conservatives within that party, of which these 30 are, and surprisingly, 2 are from California.
What?
How does that work? But I'd like to take a minute and...
no. Okay, he's good too. Okay, all right, that's how it works.
Yeah. I'd like to actually take a minute, or a couple minutes, and read the names to give these individuals proper credit.
So they're all representatives.
They're all representatives.
And they're all
yes.
Republicans.
And you have Representative Justin Amash from Michigan. I might butcher a couple of these names. Representative Andy Barr from Kentucky. Representative Diane Black from Tennessee. Representative Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee. Representative Jim Bridenstine from Oklahoma, Representative Paul Brown from Georgia, Representative Ron DeSantis from Florida, Representative Jeff Duncan from South Carolina, Representative John Fleming from Louisiana, Representative Trent Franks from Arizona, Representative Phil Gingrey from Georgia, Representative Louis Gohmert from Texas. What a name. Sorry, Gohmert, Louis. Representative Richard.
You know what? You know he is a tough dude because he had to grow up fighting with a name like that.
That's like a boy named Sue.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Now, hey, here's one that might surprise you. Representative Richard Hanna from New York.
Wow.
Right?
New York have a conservative?
Apparently, and a Tea Party conservative at that. Representative Richard Hudson from North Carolina. Representative Tim, I apologize, Tim, Hulskamp from Kansas.
You did well.
Thank you. Representative Walter Jones from North Carolina. Representative Doug LaMalfa from, you ready for it?
Yeah.
California.
Whoa.
Representative Doug Lamborn from Colorado. Representative Tom Massey from Kentucky. Representative, no surprise, Tom McClintock.
No surprise at all.
From California.
I like Tom.
Love Tom McClintock. Representative Mark Meadows, North Carolina. Representative Stephen Pierce from New Mexico. Representative Keith Rothfuss from Pennsylvania. Representative Matt Salmon from Arizona. Representative David Schweikert from Arizona. Representative Chris Stewart from Utah. Representative Steve Stockman from Texas. Representative Joe Wilson from South Carolina. Representative Kevin Yoder from Kansas. And Representative Ted Yoho from Florida.
Yo-ho. Hey, you know, I'm going to write Breitbart real quick, though. When they make a list like this, if they could put them by states.
Right.
In order, so this state, that state, maybe alphabetized, so we don't have to keep saying the states afterwards. It would just make our life a heck of a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to use a story that they wrote, they should really
hey, you know,
make it easy for us to be able to do that. Am I wrong?
Absolutely.
I am absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Well, we have to do something. We've said this before. We talked about it on the show. Obamacare is going to be one of the things that throws us over the cliff and keep us from climbing back out in the future.
What are you
Long
talking about?
after
We're
he's
sequestered
gone.
right now.
Oh, that's right. 84 with 2%. 2% sequester. 2%. And something has to be done. Obviously, we don't have the ability to just get rid of it right now. We just don't have it.
And we don't have the Senate, or not we, but conservatives, Republicans.
Conservatives don't have the Senate.
I don't know if the Republicans would even. The Republicans can't get it together.
No.
Do you think? And we're going to talk about this a little bit later on in the show with another article where it almost seems like there's this rift in the Republican Party right now between old guard Republicans and the new conservative Republicans. It's
funny because it seems like as time's going on, they're splitting more and more. You had the Tea Party jump off a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And a lot of them, you know, they're Tea Parties. They're not Republicans, and they're proud of themselves.
30 of them we just read.
Yeah.
I believe all 30 of those are Tea Party Republicans. I could be wrong. I know what McClintock is and so forth.
I think as time moves on, you're going to see that there's going to be another branch off. I think people are going to get sick of the Republicans because you have people like Boehner and Cantu and Senator Graham and McCain, and I could keep going on and of people that call themselves quote-unquote Republicans that are no way conservatives.
You know what I want to know? I want to know with the progressive hijack of the Democratic Party, I'm curious to see how many, because there are some Democrats out there who are libertarian like us, but they tend to be more liberal on social issues, but more conservative on financial issues, and they are members of the Democratic Party. I'm wondering how many would split off from there has to be, and I wonder why we don't see more of it. Why there's not the Democrats or who are just not complete progressives who understand
the old blue
constitutional public right. But we don't hear about or see that dissension, and that kind of bothers me.
Well, because they fall in line. Listen, at least the conservatives, you do have those pockets that stand up, and every once in a while you get a Democrat that stands against the big progressive stuff. I mean, I think there was one Democrat senator that voted against Obamacare, and there's been a couple Democratic senators, don't quote me 100% on that, but they pop up every now and again.
It's rare, though.
It's very rare
to see any infighting in the Democratic Party as opposed to what you see, especially lately in the Republican Party. And the Republicans haven't been able to get it together under McCain or for who's the guy that just lost? See, I don't even know who he is anymore. Who?
Romney?
Rommel? I don't know who that is.
Did you just really call him Rommel?
We're renaming everybody tonight. So, anyways, look, I'm curious to see if this conservative movement within the Republican Party is able to split off. I'm curious to see if any of those fiscally conservative Democrats are gonna pull to where you actually have a true, maybe even three-party system. Because if you have the conservatives just split from the Republican Party, you're going to have the Democrats are going to maintain control, which is fine if you're a Democrat. For now. But are there any Democrats that kind of see
there has to be
where this progressive
system
is taking our country?
And I almost wanted to, with the Tea Party branching off, and then if we get another offshoot here in the future, maybe that'll be enough to awaken the Democrats and say, hey, you know what? We don't have to fall in line, because that's all they do. You know, for the party of tolerance and understanding, and we love everyone, we want everyone to be involved.
They tolerate only their views. If you
don't fall in line, they push you out to pasture, something fierce.
Right.
And you look at even, prime example, Lanny Davis. We talked last week about the White House and Bob Woodward. He's another one, part of the Clinton administration, wrote something that was a little bit negative, and they came down hard on him. Boom. You're not falling in line. You're not doing what you're told. So is it really the all-inclusive party? No. It is the do as we say and you'll be fine party. But if you go against us, well, you're all done.
And that's something interesting with the Republicans, because there was a comment made this week about, well, hey, if Boehner does deal and raise taxes with Obama again, I think he's going to lose his speakership.
Oh, yeah.
So some of the Republicans will stand up for their principles. And I'm not saying Democrats don't stand up for their principles, but all I'm saying is it doesn't seem like there's there has to be Democrats. I would imagine there are Democrats out there who are traditional Democrats who just don't recognize the country.
And it's almost like they're afraid to go out on that limb. They're afraid that if they go out and speak against if they vote for a Republican, right, or if they get behind a Republican, if they go against their establishment, quote unquote, then they're so afraid that they won't get reelected. And I think that's what
I'm talking about. Just the people, the citizenry.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about even the elected officials. I'm talking about the people. I mean, even people in unions or whatnot, and I know unions wield a lot of power. And look, they absolutely had their purpose when they were established to some point. We can have a union discussion at another time, but you have union workers who there are some of them who are conservative but typically vote Democrat because it's a paycheck as opposed to where the country is going. And it troubles me that those individuals don't kind of stand out or leave the party or vote their heart. They get so locked into, and we talked about this, they get so locked into that D or so locked into that R.
Yeah, and it becomes more about the party, we've said this a billion times, than it is about the principle. What's right? What's, and we have to get back to that. We have to, we say principle, we talk about it all the time, and I feel like we repeat ourselves ridiculously, but it's all about principled leaders and what these people are going to do for their country versus, it's like Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. That kind of mentality of, hey, what can I bring to Washington to make the country better? Not, hey, I just want to get to Washington and then just screw around the whole time.
I thought Kennedy said, I don't know who she is, and I wasn't driving.
That was the other Kennedy.
Okay, got it.
That was Ted, a blonde in every con Kennedy. That was his campaign promise. So
look, this is why I wanted to give credit. I know it took a little bit of time. This is why I wanted to give credit specifically to these 30 individuals that wrote the letter to their leadership.
Standing up tall.
Yeah, hey, you know what? We have principles. We made this promise to the American people that we were going to do something about Obamacare. It's still largely unpopular in this country.
Huge.
It's starting to take effect, and people are starting to notice it. And are we going to keep our promise, especially in light of midterms coming up?
And I've talked to a couple small business owners that I know, and they're petrified of this because it doesn't work for them. It's not to have it jammed down their throat. It gives them zero options. So you have that, and that's just a huge problem. I don't care what anyone says.
Obviously, and like we say, we talked about that Denny's owner that had to cut full-time employees. I mean, this is happening in various places throughout the country where, Obamacare is starting to take its hold and people are starting to...
And this is the early portion. People don't realize a couple of years down the line when it's got full, absolute, when we're to the quote-unquote death panels and the government has full control over the health care of this country, and that's what's going to happen whether you like it or not. I can tell you my personal premium is jumping through the roof this year as a result of Obamacare. Why? Because a lot of people are going to go to the government option because it's cheaper. And, yeah, we can keep our quote-unquote Cadillac. I love how because it's not the government, it's a Cadillac program, like I'm some sort of rich aristocrat.
Right.
No, I just like to have my choices made between me and my doctor, and I'll pay for it because it's a service. But the fact that the government thinks that they have the right to get in there, BS, total BS.
And here's what's interesting is right now, if the government, let's say a law enforcement agency, government, right, wants access to your medical records, they have to write a search warrant to get those medical records. Or you have to consent, to have those medical records.
Now they'll just have it
turned over. Now the government just has it.
So these are all scary parts of Obamacare. That's just
hang on before our liberals go through the roof. I know law enforcement's not just going to have it, but it's still the government.
But the problem is we have a protection against the government, against agents of the government, unlawful search and seizure. When you already give them the rights to the information, it makes that void. On some levels.
Yeah, they make
on the healthcare portion. Not. It doesn't completely make the entire amendment void. But what I'm saying is on that particular thing, it's just one more ability for them to walk into your house and do what they want to do, even if it's through your medical records. So I applaud these 30. I hope we can defund Obamacare. More importantly, the simple fact that people are standing up and they're not falling in party lines from the conservative side, I applaud them just as much because that takes a lot. That says I don't care if I have the Republican support.
Think the House is going to lose? The Republicans are going to lose the House this term?
Absolutely. Unless they turn it around quick, it's going to happen. Because you know what? People are starting to notice people like these 30. There's a reason the Tea Party got elected. People don't forget that. When these people get into office and then they just fall in line and they don't run on they don't govern by what they ran on. People are paying attention now more than ever. And with the age of internet, it's easy to go back and find these clips from years ago, and we do it all the time, and we're not that intelligent. So
not at all.
Not at all. So, yeah, I think it's going to hurt them. And if they don't start standing up, and I don't care, first of all, the party's in total disarray, like we said. Nobody's on the same page. Boehner's a terrible leader.
He is. He's a horrible leader.
So, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and we don't have much time to do it.
And I'll tell you, I am anti-party. I do not like this two-party system. We've talked about it a lot. I would be okay if the Democrats stood up and kicked all the progressives out of their party and said, you know what, go make a progressive party. Because I think there was at one point, wasn't Teddy Roosevelt? Yeah. He was a progressive party member right before he was a Republican, I believe. So, you know what? No, go have your progressive party, and the Republicans are a complete mess. We're going to hold true to our core Democratic beliefs, not your progressive Democrat beliefs. But you know what? I may even switch to that.
Well, you know what?
Depending. But
it's about who's there with principle.
Right.
It's about who's there with principle. I will vote for a principled leader.
I would vote for a principled Democrat over a non-principled Republican every time, and I have.
If they're principled constitutional leaders and they just have a different letter next to their name, I don't care about the letter. I care about the person.
Exactly.
And the Exceptional Conservative show in our chat room just said, "What are you talking about? Boehner is moist and sensitive." So. So I think that's a good question for the night, and if we get to calls, 347-205.
Wait, what's the question? Is Boehner moist and sensitive?
9399. No, we have two good calls out there. Questions, rather. Will there be a third party?
Okay.
And will the Republicans lose the House in 2014?
Interesting.
So if you want to chime in, 347-205-9399. Hey, we're up against a break. When we come back,
I'd like to see a progressive party, a conservative party, and then Republicans and Democrats.
Ooh.
Like it?
Yeah, I do. I like that a lot. 5 parties, 6 parties. Who cares?
Yeah, let's just have a party.
Let's just have a humongous party here on the Sackheads Radio Show. We'll be back in a minute.
Hey folks, this is Sackhead Clint. I want to take this opportunity to thank the men and women of our armed forces, as well as our first responders, law enforcement, firefighters, and emergency medical personnel. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for making this country and our communities a better and safer place. God bless.
Hello, I'm Ashley, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Dr. Larry Arnn on why the Constitution limits government.
James Madison writes in Federalist 51 that men are not angels. Their passions and self-interest often get the better of their reason and sense of justice. So we need government in order to protect our rights against those who would take them away. But for the same reason, Madison writes, government must be limited because people in government have passions and interests too. Many Americans today forget this, supposing that we can do away with constitutional limits on government, supposing that the unelected bureaucrats being put in charge of our health care, for example, will rule as if they are angels. If Madison was correct about human nature, this is foolish and dangerous.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Sarah Marie Brenner. You know, we often talk on the Brenner Brief about the fact that there really needs to be an organization to help people at the local level who are interested in running for things like school boards, city council, and other local offices. Well, I think I finally have the solution for you, at least for you women out there. It's called Politigal Network, Politigal Network.com. Their website's going to be launching mid-August, but they're already on Twitter at PoliticalUSA. I encourage you to follow them and become a member. Their goal is to be the #1 resource for conservative women. So if you love freedom, liberty, the United States of America, and politics, check out PoliticalNetwork.com or Twitter at PoliticalUSA.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
Hey guys, it's Sean from Sackheads Radio. I want to talk to you a minute about our friends over at HomefrontHugs.com. They're an amazing organization of volunteers who take their time, effort, and money to take care of our troops overseas as they serve our great nation. HomefrontHugs.com. You can donate, write letters to troops, adopt a troop, you name it, you can do it. Help those wonderful folks who protect our freedoms. Go to HomefrontHugs.com. Tell them Sackheads Radio sent you.
Now back to Clint and Sean on Sackheads Radio, radiating elegancy and quality.
And we are back. Thank you for joining us on the second. No, we're still in the first hour. Where am I?
I don't know
we
where
doing
you
the
are
show? 347-205-9399 is the phone number if you want to chime in. Two questions of the night is, will the GOP lose the House in 2014? And what was my other question?
Who cares? Hey,
moving right along. No, will the GOP lose the House in 2014? And will there be another party popping up?
All right. We have a lot to talk about on this next segment right here, so if you get calls, Sacco, if you can screen them first, because we've got a lot of stuff going on. So we actually have Sacco in-house tonight. Sacco, thanks for joining us. Welcome back. We had some issues while you were gone, and we miss you. And love you.
I love you too, Sean. I mean, Clint.
I'm Clint.
I love the fact he doesn't even know our names.
No, exactly. I love you too,
Bob. He's just here for the paycheck. That's great. No, you know what? He's totally impartial.
Yeah.
He just does his job. I love it.
So, interesting week. I'd like to talk about the drone strikes on U.S. citizens on U.S. soil. So, interesting story. Senator Rand Paul, he's a big opponent of the drone program, as you know, and he writes a letter requesting to know if drones are going to be used against military drones, armed drones, are going to be used against U.S. citizens on U.S. soil. And he got a response first, dated February 20th, 2013, from John O'Brien, who was Assistant to the President for Homeland Security and Counterterrorism. And I'd like to read the letter. I have a copy here, and it says, "Dear Senator Paul, thank you for your February 20th, it's dated March 5th, 2013. It says, "Dear Senator Paul, thank you for your February 20th, 2013 letter regarding the power to authorize lethal force, such as a drone strike, against a U.S. citizen on U.S. soil and without trial. The Department of Justice will address your legal question regarding the President's authorities under separate cover." So this is where Eric Holder's letter comes in. This is the letter that came in prior to. And it goes on. It says, "I can, however, state unequivocally," that's a big word. How'd you like how I nailed that?
I'm glad you said it, because I would have tripped all over it.
Thank you very much. "That the agency I have been nominated to lead, the CIA, does not conduct lethal operations inside the United States, nor does it have any authority to do so. Thus, if I am fortunate enough to be confirmed as CIA director, I would have no quote-unquote power to authorize such operations. In addition, I have asked the CIA to respond to your letters of January 25th and February 12th, 2013, which raise a number of important questions regarding issues pertaining to the advancement of America's strategic priorities around the globe." And it's signed sincerely, John O'Brien, Assistant to the President for Homeland Security and Counterterrorism. Who's
now CIA Director, Brennan, officially.
Okay. So then here comes Eric Holder.
What?
Who is just a legal genius, a constitutional scholar without parallel.
Absolutely without parallel.
Just without equal. The man is just a powerhouse of constitutional knowledge.
And transparency.
Completely. Yeah, and transparency. I believe he's also known as the Minister of Propaganda. No, he's not known as the Minister of Propaganda. Who wrote that note right here?
That was me. I'm sorry. I got all sorts of confused on that.
So here's a letter that Senator Paul got from Eric Holder, the Attorney General. And it is dated March 4th, 2013, and it says, "Dear Senator Paul, on February 20th, 2013, you wrote to John Brennan requesting additional information concerning the administration's views about whether, quote, the President has the power to authorize lethal force, such as a drone strike against a U.S. citizen on U.S. soil and without trial." Now, listen to the wording in this letter very carefully here. And I know you will, because you're just staring at me with those beautiful long eyelashes and just batting them at me, which is kind of distracting.
I actually had them done this week.
It says, as members of the administration have previously indicated, the U.S. government has not carried out drone strikes in the United States and has no intention of doing so. Okay.
All right.
So you haven't done it, and you don't think you're going to do it.
No.
He goes on. As a policy matter, moreover, we reject the use of military force where well-established law enforcement authorities in this country provide the best means for incapacitating a terrorist threat. We have a long history of using the criminal justice system to incapacitate individuals located in our country who pose a threat to the United States and its interests abroad. Hundreds of individuals have been arrested and convicted of terrorism-related offenses in our federal courts. The question you have posed is therefore entirely hypothetical, unlikely to occur, and one we hope no president will ever have to confront. Now here's the interesting part. It is possible, I suppose, to imagine an extraordinary circumstances in which it would be necessary and appropriate under the Constitution and applicable laws of the United States for the President to authorize the military to use lethal force within the territory of the United States. For example, the President could conceivably have no choice but to authorize the military to use such force if necessary to protect the homeland in the circumstances of a catastrophic attack like the ones suffered on December 7th, 1941 and September 11th, 2001. Were such an emergency to arise, I would examine the particular facets and circumstances before advising the President of the scope of his authority. Sincerely, Eric H. Holder, Attorney General. Now, here's the problem. The major problem is not, no, absolutely not, the President has no authority to conduct military operations within the United States against U.S. citizens. And it was also not, you know what, in case of insurrection such as a civil war, the President may authorize the use of military force against an insurrection such as we saw with the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know what, in case of we're under attack like September 11th, which it kind of alluded to, we may use these strikes in order to down civilian airliners to prohibit mass casualties. But then I would argue that is a strike against an insurgent. Civilians, unfortunately, happen to be on the aircraft.
Right.
And I would also argue that an act of war, even a civil war, would be an act of war.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, those individuals would be organized combatants. But that's not what's said here,
right,
in this letter. It doesn't outline it that specifically. It just says, well, it leaves it kind of vague. Well, I suppose, yeah, maybe we could.
First of all, when you ask for clarification on whether or not the president can use a robot to kill Americans, the words "I suppose" should not be in there anywhere. Just throwing that out there.
Well, let's.
I'm kind of looking for a definitive answer. Not supposed.
And here's the thing, what we're talking about, and just follow me on this for a moment.
I'm trying.
And again, I'm not saying that this is going to happen. I'm not saying President Obama wants to kill U.S. citizens. This isn't some big conspiracy theory. But what some wingnut senator, which we're going to get to later, actually talks about we're dealing in hypotheticals and we're not having rational discussions or something to that effect. But here's the thing. It's not whether this particular president will use the power. It's whether he can.
Yes.
Because this president may not.
Mm-hmm.
The next president may not. But you may get a president one day who can. And now you've established precedent. And we have to be so careful with our liberties as to not leave something like this open to interpretation for some president to just decide on his or her own. And here's the other problem with it. If there is a situation, a conceivable situation where perhaps a president may use lethal force on a U.S. citizen, it didn't say an organized combatant rising up in insurrection, civil war. It said an American citizen. So if he believes that there may be a circumstance where the president can order lethal force delivered by the military against a United States citizen, and that's pretty extreme, what would prohibit them from doing something not as extreme? For example, arresting and detaining without a warrant or without any kind of charges, or internment, or doing any kind of enhanced interrogation or torture against American citizens. Who decides what terrorism is? Who decides what a threat of the United States is? And all of those things do not need to be left up to interpretation.
Right.
Have you read Albert Speer's book? Albert Speer was like the war minister under Hitler. He did 20 years in Spandau after. And again, I'm not saying Obama's Hitler, so before all you left-wing wingnuts out there start going crazy, this is not what I'm saying.
Too late, and I'm tweeting.
Perfect. All I'm saying is this. Follow the parallels in we're talking about like a rise to tyranny. We're not talking about the Obama administration at this point. We're talking about just the American government as a generic entity. Whether it's Bush, Obama, whoever the next president is, doesn't matter. The American government as a
whoever's
generic
sitting in the Oval
entity.
Office.
And the rise of power of the Reich in Germany and kind of how they ended up really kind of cementing their power and interring. They started talking about how well, hey, we deem those who are vocal against us as an enemy of the state and as a threat to the fatherland. And all that was done over a period of time. Hitler didn't take power and inter everybody and go invade Poland.
Yeah, it wasn't like Tuesday everyone's free, Wednesday Poland's screwed.
Right, and now we're killing Freemasons, Catholics, Jewish people, and everybody who disagrees with us.
There's no more Grand Slam breakfast at Denny's.
Right.
Oh, and by the way.
So we have to, just because, well, it'll never happen in America. Guess what?
We got to get over that.
Do you think the Germans thought that it was going to happen there? We can't leave the door open. Do you think the
Romans thought it was going to happen?
No, we cannot leave the door open. So look, a lot of people have to say, oh, we can't kill Americans.
It's our job to protect us.
It is. And this is why, and you know what? Again, I haven't heard this point of view in anywhere on. I haven't heard this point of view anywhere. Maybe I'm just not paying attention, but I know for a fact it hasn't been anywhere in the mainstream media that I've heard this point. As far as, look, we're not talking just about killing American citizens on U.S. soil through use of the military. We're talking about, if that's allowed, what about all this minor stuff? Hey, look, we interned the Japanese United States citizens at the outbreak of World War II.
Right, and there was total outrage about it, and rightfully so.
Rightfully so. So it has happened in this country.
In the last 60 years, 70 years.
What makes us think that it cannot happen again, or even to a worse degree? And that is what is so troubling about this story for me. Now, a couple things on this. First of all, the Obama administration, Eric Holder, has talked about how they basically want to treat terrorists like citizens, afford them the same constitutional rights as American citizens. Yet, do you have any audio? You have audio for that? Yet they're talking about killing American citizens on U.S. soil, yet affording terrorists constitutional rights. So, what do you think?
Question from the chairman. You said that terrorists have the same rights as Charles Manson, correct?
I said that murderers have the same rights as Charles Manson, and if these people are charged with murder, in essence, those are the kinds of rights that they would get.
And terrorists who have murdered U.S. citizens, and the approach of your Department of Justice is they have the same rights as Charles Manson.
In the sense that a murderer has the right to go before a jury, get the acts that he's charged with proven beyond a reasonable doubt, yes.
So therefore, Osama bin Laden, in your opinion, has the same rights as Charles Manson?
In some ways, I think they're comparable people. In some ways,
that's incredible.
So yeah, it's one of those. It's absolutely incredible the fact that he would say that.
Yet you believe that it may be conceivable to kill U.S. citizens via military.
Right, that's fine.
And this prompted Senator Paul to actually filibuster, and he spoke for darn near 13 hours on this. And
how did he do that? We can barely get through a 2-hour show some nights. I mean, seriously. And we plan. I mean, I'm sure he planned his filibuster, but man.
Yeah, we have audio for that.
For his filibuster?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think a portion of this needs to be
Before
played.
we get into that, though, one of the things I want to point out about the drones, he specifically said the CIA, Brennan said the CIA does not operate in America, nor is it allowed to operate in America. Holder said...
they operate with lethal...
Lethal force in America,
right.
Sorry. Holder said, essentially, the president wouldn't use the military against the citizenry or couldn't, blah, 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 blah. Nobody said anything about Homeland Security or FEMA.
Right. Well, I'd be more concerned if they were buying armored vehicles or ammunition, or
like
if they
2,700 of them.
Or if they were training their own personal. Wait, what? Never mind. I guess I'm concerned.
Yeah. So anyhow, here's Rand Paul's filibuster. Not the whole thing.
No.
Only after yanking his chain, browbeating him in committee, threatening not to let him out of committee, does he finally say he's going to obey the law. We should be alarmed by that. Alarm bells should go off when we find that what is going on here is it takes that much for him to say that he's going to obey the law. Now, the president has said, don't worry, because he's not going to kill you with a drone unless it's infeasible to catch you. Now, sounds kind of comforting. But I guess if our standard for whether we kill you or not is whether it's practical or not, that does bother me a little bit. It just doesn't sound quite strict enough, because I'm kind of worried that maybe there's a sequester and the president says we can't have tours of the White House. Maybe he's not got enough people to go arrest you. He had policemen behind him. He said he was going to lay off the policemen. Of course, he doesn't have anything to do with the policemen, so don't worry about that. But he had the policemen behind him. He's going to lay off. So maybe it's infeasible because he's laid off the policeman, so it's going to be easier to kill you. So, I know that sounds like we've gone a slippery slope beyond what he's asking for, But if the standard is it's infeasible to capture you, and that's what you're hanging your hat on, I'd be a little concerned that that may not be enough protection for Americans on American soil. Now, there is a law called Posse Comitatus. It's been on the books since shortly after the Civil War. And it's once again one of these things a lot of people don't think about, but it's an important thing. It says the military doesn't operate on U.S. soil unless there's a declaration of an insurrection or civil war. There has to be a process that Congress goes through. And we've had this law for a long time. And once again, the reason we do it is not because we think our military are bad people. I'm proud of our soldiers. I'm proud of our Army. I'm proud of what they do for our country. But they operate under different rules. And it's a much more dangerous environment they operate under, and it's different. It's still dangerous in America, but policemen have a different rules of engagement than your soldiers have. And there's more restrictions and restraint on what we do in our country. So that's why we say the military can't operate here. So when we ask the president, can you kill Americans on American soil with your drone strikes, which is part of the military, it should be an easy answer. In fact, I hope someone's calling him now and asking him for an answer. It saved me a lot of time and breath, and my throat's already dry, and I just got started. But if they would ask him for an answer, can the military operate in the United States? Well, no. The law says the military can't operate in the United States. It's on the books, and he should simply do the honorable thing and say he will obey the law. It's simple. But I don't get why they refuse to answer it. It worries me that they refuse to answer the question, because by refusing to answer it, I believe that they believe they have expansive power, unlimited power. The real irony of this is that many on the left, Senator Barack Obama included, were very critical of the Bush administration. They felt like the Bush administration usurped power. They felt like the Bush administration argued.
So and on and on.
And on and on and on.
And you know what?
Hours.
And you know what? They were right, because there are things the Bush administration did that I absolutely disagree with. And I'm going to get hammered by our conservative listeners for that, or by our Republican listeners anyways, for that. Look, there are things that Bush did that I wasn't
absolutely not thrilled about.
You know, but this is one of those things that, man, what a road you don't even want to begin to go down, because, you know, if A, then B. Why leave that door open? Oh, it'll never happen. Okay, but how's about instead of just leaving the door cracked open to where somebody can stick a foot in there,
right?
Why don't we just shut it like it needs to be slammed? And I was proud of there was a Democrat out of Oregon who actually stood up with Rand Paul, and it was Senator Ron Wyden out of Oregon, and he was the only Democrat to step up. And you know, here's the thing: does he want
to join a new party?
I would think that this is an issue that liberals would be on board with us conservative libertarians, because I think that, you know, they were up in arms when Bush was doing some of these things.
The Patriot Act,
not the drone strikes, but they were up in arms over the Patriot Act and some of these other things. And so, but now there's like a large silence.
Yeah, all of a sudden they have nothing to say.
Not all of them. A couple of them are kind of like are coming out and saying, yeah, that's wrong, like Senator Wyden and a couple others. But it's not that prevalent. And I would think this is an issue that could actually unite
a lot of
people
sides.
on both sides.
Parties. This should be an easy one.
Absolutely.
This should be an easy one for everyone to get behind. But it shows that a lot on the left and even some on the right don't want to just speak out against what's right.
And here's the other thing also. Hey, liberals, you may really enjoy what's going on right now and really think that President Obama should have the power to strike people that he deems threats against the American interest. I still don't even know what that criteria is. What happens if and when a conservative gets back in there?
Oh, yeah.
And now has that same power?
Are you going to be happy with that?
Are you going to be happy about
Absolutely not. It would be outrage.
And you know
they'd
what?
They'd be walking out on every single vote. There'd be the march down the street.
And we would be them speaking out against.
Yeah, absolutely. But we are also doing it on this side just like we would on that side, because we try to stick to reason, we try to stick to principles, and the left is all about power. Listen, we've talked about this before. Mm-hmm. They're about getting and holding power as much as possible. That's why they pass things like health care, Obamacare, and they tell you, you'll find out what it's in it when we pass it. That should be a huge indicator right there. And by the way, for a president who was all against all sorts of war, and we don't, when he was running and all this other stuff, and all of a sudden now he's like Captain Drone Strike. Look, I mean, I swear he's using it like an Xbox some days in his living room.
Do you think he's in the Oval Office like, hey, watch this?
Yeah, like seriously. And when Anna Al-Awlaki, and I talked to an old conservative today, and he's really right Republican guy. So we're chit-chatting.
Old conservative?
Yeah.
What did Rooster have to say?
No, a different old guy.
Oh, okay.
And we were talking about this in specific in the drone strikes, and he was like, as conservative as he was, he came pretty much out and said, hey, you know what? If they're fighting against our country, I don't care, blow them up. And I said, that's not the point. The point is, if it's an American citizen
on American soil.
Right. Now, if you go to arrest him and he fights, a different story.
But that's a law enforcement issue. That's not a military
But if
issue.
he's, right, and I'm talking about overseas or here. If you know it's an American citizen and you're trying to go and get him, then, okay, if he fights, fine. But he's an American citizen. You try him with treason. You can do a whole bunch of things legally.
Now, I will say this: if he or she is in a training camp or involved in active combat, and hey, you know what? You're not going to say, whoa, stop, recall that Hellfire because that one guy is an American.
Right.
Hey.
And a lot of times we don't know until afterwards.
Exactly.
Because it's not like they keep files.
I have no problem with the Obama administration using drones in the theater of war.
No, absolutely not.
When we are actively engaged.
We're talking about Americans specifically specifically on American soil.
Exactly.
But I just thought that was amazing to hear an old conservative be like, no, hey, you know what? Fine. If he's doing it, kill him. And I was like, all right, I don't necessarily agree if it's a known American like Anna Al-Awlaki, where we targeted him. We knew he was an American, and we targeted him specifically with the Hellfire missile. As much as I'm glad he's dead, and I am, I am so glad that he's dead, I did have an issue, and we talked about this before, and I have more of an issue now, I think, than I did in the past, that he's an American. And whether or not he's a misguided American or a jerk American or whatever.
You may not agree with his viewpoints.
Right.
But I agree he needed to get caught. Or hey, you know what? If he resisted and they needed to kill him, then so be it. But you specifically targeted an American citizen for death without...
Now, and let me ask you this.
Without due process.
If the drones are so used by the Obama administration...
Mm-hmm.
And al-Awlaki got a drone. He was a big deal in Al-Qaeda. Bin Laden didn't get a drone. Wouldn't it have been easier just to send a drone through his front door? Or a Hellfire missile through his front door? We knew where he was. We knew who it was. We find out more and more that we were almost 100% sure. Probably no more than Anna Al-Awlaki.
Here's the thing. I'm not I don't know, because they might have wanted to try and get Bin Laden. Do you think they wanted to try and get Bin Laden alive?
Yeah, I think
so.
I think they wanted him on trial, but that's my problem.
Yeah,
and that's going to.
Why are you going to try certain? Look, they just brought his
son-in-law that is
back to trial against the wishes of Congress, by the way, because now you have an enemy combatant.
Yeah.
So wait a second, you're going to drones? You said, well, we may
American citizen drone strike.
We don't know. Maybe there could be some scenario, but yet you're going to bring this guy back for trial, and again, against the wishes of Congress. He is a combatant.
Yeah.
He should be non-citizen combatant. He should be detained in Guantanamo, I think. We're up against a break.
We are up against a break.
We have more on drone strikes when we come back.
Absolutely. And we'll see you in a minute with Sackheads Radio.
Hey folks, this is Sackhead Clint. I want to take this opportunity to thank the men and women of our armed forces, as well as our first responders, law enforcement, firefighters, and emergency medical personnel. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for making this country and our communities a better and safer place. God bless.
Hello, I'm Ashley, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Dr. Larry Arnn on why the Constitution limits government.
James Madison writes in Federalist 51 that men are not angels. Their passions and self-interest often get the better of their reason and sense of justice. So we need government in order to protect our rights against those who would take them away. But for the same reason, Madison writes, government must be limited, because people in government have passions and interests too. Many Americans today forget this, supposing that we can do away with constitutional limits on government, supposing that the unelected bureaucrats being put in charge of our health care, for example, will rule as if they are angels. If Madison was correct about human nature, this is foolish and dangerous.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Sarah Marie Brenner. You know, we often talk on the Brenner Brief about the fact that there really needs to be an organization to help people at the local level who are interested in running for things like school boards, city council, and other local offices. Well, I think I finally have the solution for you, at least for you women out there. It's called Politigal Network, Politigal Network.com. Their website's going to be launching mid-August, but they're already on Twitter at PolitigalUSA. I encourage you to follow them and become a member. Their goal is to be the #1 resource for conservative women. So if you love freedom, liberty, the United States of America, and politics, check out PolitigalNetwork.com or Twitter at PolitigalUSA.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
Hey guys, it's Sean from Sackheads Radio. I want to talk to you a minute about our friends over at HomefrontHugs.com. They're an amazing organization of volunteers who take their time, effort, and money to take care of our troops overseas as they serve our great nation. HomefrontHugs.com. You can donate, write letters to troops, adopt a troop, you name it, you can do it. Help those wonderful folks who protect our freedoms. Go to HomefrontHugs.com. Tell them Sackheads Radio sent you.
Nah.
Now back to Clint and Sean on Sackheads Radio, radiating elegancy and quality.
And we're back talking drones, and not necessarily the ones that voted for Obama. We're talking about the other kind that kill Americans.
You know what killed me is not a drone yet, although Sackheads Radio may be deemed an enemy of the state because we disagree.
Well, I mean, what else is new though? They already listen. Hi guys, how's it going over there in the White House?
You know what absolutely killed me though is some of the Republican response to Rand Paul's filibuster.
Oh.
And one of them is our friend, my friend and yours, Dr. Death. You know, he kind of looks like Leslie Nielsen when he played that vampire. Remember what was that movie?
Dracula. Dead loving it.
Yeah. He kind of looks like that, don't you think?
I think he looks like everybody who's ever played Dick Cheney, only worse. That's the only way I can describe him.
I don't know. He looks okay. So Dead and Loving It gets up, and he actually has a response.
Sorry.
And that's what he said. So it was weird. He opened his mouth, and that's what came out.
I don't think that was all of it, though.
Oh, do you have the rest of it?
Yeah, he went on for a little while, and here it is.
Oh, wait.
But to somehow allege or infer that the President of the United States is going to kill somebody like Jane Fonda or someone who disagrees with the policies is a stretch of imagination which is frankly ridiculous. So I don't disagree that we need more debate, more discussion, and frankly probably more legislation.
I'm just kidding. He's a totally sane person.
I don't know. He hasn't been clinically diagnosed.
I love the fact he needs. You know what? He needs to retire. I appreciate his service in the military. I think when he was younger, he was a little bit more clear. I think now that
he realized nobody wanted to hear what he had to say back in 2004?
He hasn't learned his lesson.
2008.
I love the fact that he's like, we need more legislation. Yeah, that's what we need in this country is more legislation. How about using common sense?
So here's the thing, and we touched on it a little bit already. This president may not go use it to blow somebody up,
right?
Like Jane Fonda or something else. But the fact that an administration,
any administration
can, or
Sackhead Clint 2015,
or any administration, if they felt they can,
right?
That's the problem, because if they feel they can initiate a military strike or use deadly force against an American citizen without due process, then what else do they feel they can do to a U.S. citizen? And, it's not that crazy, because in World War II, Senator McCain, when you were 60 years old...
when you were on your second marriage.
Yeah, when you were on your second marriage and serving in the military. In the Second World War, we interned Japanese citizens.
Yeah.
United States citizens who were of Japanese descent. You think that if an administration, again, insert name, doesn't matter who, if they can have the power to use deadly force, well, internment is a lesser use of force than deadly force would be. Why leave that door open? So, yeah, it may be ridiculous to you because you're looking at it, in my opinion, in a very, very narrow manner in terms of this administration, what they would or would not do right now in these terms, and that's your belief. But why leave it open for any administration? Well, Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter, and that's the conversation. That's the point.
Right. That's the argument. And to go back to Anna Al-Awlaki, and we have to use that one because that's the most well-known American that was killed by a drone. If they deemed him too dangerous to go in and get, or they couldn't work it out with Yemen, which I don't think is the case, I think Yemen would have allowed us to go in and get him. But if they said, hey, you know what, he's just too dangerous to go get, it's too hard for us to do it, so we're going to shoot a hellfire at him. How can that translate to, say, somebody hold up here that the government becomes tyrannous and they're trying to hold the Constitution and they're trying to stick with our government the way it is now, a constitutional republic. And then they turn around and say, oh, you know what, though? It's too dangerous to go in and get that guy because we want to arrest him because he doesn't agree with us. What are our options?
Or, you know what, hey, you know what, yeah, this guy, he's crazy. We think he's plotting some terrorist attack. He's an imminent threat to the United States.
Absolutely.
And he's
in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and he says if anybody comes in, no, he's Ted Kaczynski like. He lives in a mountain in a shack in the woods, and he says anybody that comes on his property to get him, he's going to go ahead and defend his property. And so, you know what? We're not going to send law enforcement in to get him and bring him to justice like you would any other criminal who's barricaded or whatnot. But we're actually just going to go ahead and send a strike in.
Yeah.
No collateral damage. He's out in the middle of nowhere. The environmentalists may have an issue with that because it might kill a tree. But hey, hey, left. These may kill trees.
Right.
Or cactuses or some other innocent
and they could release certain things into the air that wouldn't be healthy.
Right. Does the government have
the American southern tree slug might actually be affected by this?
Does the government have any kind of carbon emission standards? Because maybe they can only shoot a couple missiles a year before they reach their cap, right?
Right, they'll have to buy some more carbon emission tickets.
Else.
Yeah, and they could trade it with any one of the green companies that are still in business. So anyhow,
nothing. Oh, weird. Okay.
So they're not in business. Oh well. And then that brings us up to now with Bin Laden's brother here in America on trial, pled not guilty today.
Well, of course. What's he going to say?
I'm shocked he didn't say guilty.
That's because he's a coward.
Yeah.
Either that or he thinks the American criminal justice system is a joke. Because they exploit it. He thinks that there is what's crazy is after everything he's done is he believes that there's a chance that he may be found not guilty. And you know what? There is.
Well,
there is a chance he may be found not guilty. Hey, he is an enemy combatant. He's not a U.S. citizen, correct?
All you need is like one old grandmother to feel bad for him, because they're going to shave him, clean him up, make him look nice, put him in there, and they're going to go, he's not the type of guy that could plot the demise of the America.
Is he an American citizen?
No.
No, he is not.
Nope.
He is an enemy combatant. We are at war with these terrorists, and he is an enemy combatant, yet he is in this trial. So what happens if he's found not guilty?
Hey, did they Mirandize him before they started asking him questions? Because if not, they're going to throw it out. An exceptional conservative just brought that up in the chat room. You know what I mean?
Of course, Eric Holder.
All it's going to take is...
Listen, hey, Eric Holder is a scholar. He is a constitutional and a legal scholar. And I guarantee that any opinion he has is,
you know what? He supposes he knows. I just think it's amazing that some douchebag defense attorney out there is going to take this case and honestly be like, I hope he plays like Matlock, or the old country lawyer bit. Now, I'm just a country lawyer, and I don't know anything about nuclear fissile material or anything like that. But
what about worse than that? What if he gets a defense attorney, like a lot of them are, where it's these, one of these, like I call them true believers, where they actually believe that their client is innocent. I'm not talking about working within the law and safeguarding their constitutional rights and making sure that judicial process is followed and adhered to, and that law enforcement did the right thing. What I'm talking about is a true believer who actually goes through and believes that whoever got him beat him or did X, Y, and Z or whatever the case is.
Handcuffs are too tight.
And instead of doing his duty or her duty as a defense attorney and making sure the Constitution was followed or whatnot, actually takes it above and beyond that. And we've read stories about this where they turn it into an attack on the victim or turning it into an attack on the system or whatever else it is, as opposed to, hey, you know what, I'm safeguarding my client's rights. I'm now slinging mud at X, Y, or Z, turning it into a media circus, whatever the case is. And now you get this guy who goes free. What if he goes free? Has anybody answered that question?
I guarantee you. And we're
going to give him a plane ride back?
No, you know what? There's going to be a family member at 9/11 just waiting outside the court. I guarantee it's going to happen, especially in New York, because it's crazy.
That can't happen because there's no guns allowed in New York, right?
Crazy
they have really
liberal
strict gun control laws.
As New York is, and I've been in New York a ton of times.
I can't tell by your accent.
I only grew up the road, and I love New York City. I really do. It's an awesome place to visit. It's a great city. But they protect
you love
their
their baseball team?
No.
Oh.
I love the people there, though. New York's a fun town. It's no Boston, but it's a good town. They protect their own, and that would not fly there.
So
there would be total outrage in New York.
Well, here's the thing. This guy then, taxpayer dollars are going to be spent for protection and everything else.
Well, yeah. He's going to get the helicopter out. Anything they can. I do picture it a little bit of it. Did you ever see the movie with Colin Farrell, SWAT? Where they were moving the super expensive French guy, and they came up with this ridiculous, insane notion that all these people trying to free him.
I didn't see it because I don't watch realistic SWAT movies like that.
It's going to be almost the exact opposite, where all these people are going to be trying to kill him, and they're going to have to protect him. And now we almost.
But how are they going to do it? Because gun laws are so strict in New York that nobody's going to be able to do it with a gun, right?
Well, and they're not going to have more than 7 rounds.
Right.
Find me a semi-automatic that is designed to hold 7 rounds.
Yeah, I can't. They're going to have to block the magazine. Listen, we're getting off topic here. I thought it was interesting that because of this whole filibuster, that Eric Holder got sent a new letter to Rand Paul.
Yes, a response
to Senator
today.
Paul. It's a real long-winded letter, but I'm going to read it all anyway, so bear with me. It's dated March 7th, 2013, and it says, Honorable Rand Paul. I'm sure he believes that. It says, Dear Senator Paul. What? Why are you laughing? My Lego guy's saluting me right now. It says, Dear Senator Paul, it has come to my attention that you have now asked an additional question. Quote, does the president have the authority to use a weaponized drone to kill an American not engaged in combat on American soil? The answer to that question is no. Okay. That seems pretty specific.
Right.
Does the president have the authority to use a weaponized drone to kill an American soil not engaged in combat on American soil.
He left out by who?
Yeah.
Now, the president may not have authority, but what about, say, the head of Homeland Security?
Are you asking me?
I'm just saying. Again, it's so open-ended. It's ridiculous. And I'm sure that came, I'm sure Obama called Holder and said, hey, you know what, just tell him no. Because by the time we do it, it's going to be too late anyhow.
Well, here's the funny thing. Jay Carney, the Minister of Propaganda for the Obama administration.
I believe his Latin name would be Douchebagius Maximus.
Okay. So, Carney, every time I see him, and I think,
he's just such a little weasel.
Hang on a sec. Picture him with like a white, like stained white, just undershirt tank top with like missing teeth, all messed out at a carnival, right? He's a Carney. I can picture that, right?
You know what's funny is I picture him as the kid from the Mr. Peabody. Gee, Mr. Peabody, the little nerd with the glasses.
Right.
You know, that couldn't do anything by himself, and he needed a dog.
No, I could totally picture him.
Well, Jay,
I could totally picture him as just a tweaked out Carney, spun up method. So let's call him Jay the Carney.
Carney, circus folk, have small hands, smell like cabbage, nomad, Austin Powers.
Well, here's what he says. Carney says, quote, if the United States were under attack, there were an imminent threat. Basically, the president would then have the authority to order military action to repel that threat. What's the imminent threat? And what is defined as under? Are we under physical attack? Are we under ideological attack? Are we under emotional attack? I mean,
cyber attack?
I'm being facetious, but yeah. What kind of attack? And again, what is an imminent threat? And who determines what that imminent threat is? And so on one hand, Eric Holder says, no, not on American soil. But then you have Jay Carney come out and says, well, if the United States were under attack, there's an imminent threat, then, yeah, he can order the military to do that. Look, we know that if there's an insurrection and it comes to that point, like another
that would
civil
be deemed
war or
a
whatnot,
threat by whoever's sitting in that office.
Congress still has to go about and enact posse comitatus, correct?
Yes.
Rand Paul just talked about this in his clip. There's a process for that. And it's not for the president to just send the military in to take out citizens. So again, we have this kind of gray area. We have this unknown where on one hand, we think we have an answer, and it seems pretty straightforward from that constitutional scholar Eric Holder.
Genius. But the guy knows it inside and out. I'll tell you something.
Eric Holder. Genius.
Yes. Super genius. It just gets frustrating. And the fact that, in 1 minute they're like, hey, we're going to clarify it with this letter. And then Carney comes out a few minutes later and says, you know how we clarified that? We're going to actually unclarify that.
No,
and we're going to add the gray area again.
Look, what Eric Holder was saying is no, the president does not have the authority to do it. But if there was an imminent threat, then yeah, maybe.
And again, it begs the question.
The guy purchased a gun 3 years ago.
And I am so glad this is the most transparent administration that we've seen to date, because they love to clarify this and they love to straighten it out.
Well, here's the thing. They're so transparent that we can't see it.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen the transparency in this administration. They're so
I
transparent,
agree.
It's like glass. You just can't.
It's like the speed of light.
Right.
The naked eye can't catch it.
It's like Windex that the crow flies into on that glass door. It's just that transparent. It's not even there. It's like it's not even there.
No, it scares me. And I always get this, and I always have to validate myself by saying, I know this sounds paranoid, but you have to look at the totality of things. Homeland Security, FEMA, 2,700 Humvees, the drone strikes. They're already using drones for surveillance. The feds are in this country. Drones are popping up all over the place. You start looking at all the military exercises that goes with it. There has to be. You can't sit on the left and tell me that it doesn't raise a little bit of suspicion.
And again, it's not because it is this president. It is any president, any administration. This is not something that we can leave the door open on.
And we've talked a long time. Progressives think super long term. That's something that we lose on the conservative front sometimes. The progressives have been making this movement since the early 1900s.
Look, the progressives think change over long term. The conservatives don't. The conservatives, true conservatives, they want to go back to, not back to where we were in terms of slavery and all that other stuff, but go back to basic constitutional principles of a constitutional republic: small government, maximum individual liberties and freedoms, because we are not designed to be a large bureaucratic administrative state. I mean, we're not. Look at where we are now.
We're not a true democracy, folks.
We're not. We're not set up to be that way. But look where we are now. We are at a point now where Congress, the elected representatives, represent the will of the people, right? That's who we send there. But that's
they work for us.
But that's not who makes or enforces our laws, which is how it's supposed to be. We have these unelected bureaucrats that enact these regulations that have the force and penalties as laws. They're laws, folks.
Yeah.
But we have this administrative state that has all these regulations. Look, there was a case out of Sacramento today that was just so ridiculous that I heard about, where literally a local food truck that had all the permits had caused 3 code enforcement people to respond to kind of deal with this thing that wasn't even a problem. Look, that's not an elected official enacting these laws. It's these administrative laws that are put into effect that,
well,
these people
they
aren't
sidestep
accountable.
the law. They sidestep the Constitution. They do it with
but that's
the EPA.
But that's the point of the progressive movement, whereas the traditional conservatives want that representative republic, and that's what our goal is, to where, hey, our elected representatives are the ones who make the laws, and the president is charged with enforcing those laws and with maintaining the security of the nation.
Just so you know, Blues Unchained in the chat room says, insurrection definition, anytime somebody disagrees with a liberal. So that clarifies it for you.
Well, hey, even scarier then.
Listen, if you guys want to chime in, 347-205-9399 is our phone number. We have Sacco screening. We will try to get to phones before the end of the show.
We've had to turn down a couple calls already, but just because we've been on point with this and the callers wanted to discuss something off point. But we do have your segment coming up next. There's actually a 2-part segment, and this show's flying by.
Yeah, no, we're coming up in the last 30 here, and I wish we had way more time.
I think we should take our break now.
You want to take our break now?
I think we should take our break now.
When we come back, we're going to talk about North Korea.
Yeah.
And, man, that's going to be I want to go so many different ways that I don't even know where to start. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back in a minute.
Hey, if you care about what's going on in the world, you cannot afford to miss my show. Hi, this is Andrea Kaye, your host of The Andrea Kaye Show. It's not always about the money. Okay, it is always about the money, but it's also about politics, pop culture, and you. The only thing street about this show is the smarts. There's a reason they call me Dynamite in a Dress, and you'll find out why when you listen Tuesday mornings at 10 on Financial News and Talk.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
3, 2, 1.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint. I want to take this opportunity to thank all the wingnut leaders throughout the world to give our men and women of the armed forces a job, as well as all the anarchists, terrorists, and Occupy folks that give our men and women in uniform on the home front, firefighters, law enforcement personnel, and first responders, job security here in the States as well. So thank all you wingnuts out there. This is Sackhead Clint saying have a good day.
Now back to Clint and Sean on Sackheads Radio, radiating elegancy and quality.
So we are back, and we're talking about, well, coming out of drones and into another drone. This is North Korea, Kim Jong Un.
He was just droning.
On
and on.
So this week, the United Nations passed another set of sanctions against them, and they're gonna make it tighter and tighter. And this is what, the fourth or fifth set of sanctions?
Yeah, but why? Why are they trying to punish?
Oh, because they had that.
They blew.
You know that little nuclear explosion that they tested, and now they're starting to.
That's not a big deal, right?
No, why should that be a big deal?
It's not a big deal. I don't know.
So they passed a resolution, which surprisingly China co-authored, and I'm co-drafted, if you will. I'm kind of shocked by that because China is such a close ally with North Korea. They give them everything.
Yeah, but China doesn't want a nuclear war either.
That says to me that even China is starting to become concerned about what this guy will and won't do. They don't have. I think with the old man, they kind of had a thumb on his pulse, and they could kind of tell. They don't know this guy from Adam. We don't even know how old he really is. We just know he's crazier than his father, and you could tell by the haircut.
Didn't he do that song, Gangnam Style? Is this him?
No.
It's not.
No, it's not. Okay. Though I would love to see that. I think that would be outstanding.
Okay.
Fortunately, we have the Ambassador Dennis Rodman that recently went over there, and he helped us out saying that, he just wants a phone call.
Yeah,
that's all he wants to do is a phone call with the president. And then a couple days later, all of a sudden, North Korea says it's ready to end the armistice with the South and that it's going to commit surgical strikes. It wants to turn Washington into a sea of fire.
Hang on a second. First of all, he wanted the surgical strikes with a precision nuclear striking tool.
Yes,
is the quote in order to attack South Korea. And as you're well aware, because we talked about this when we were in pre-production, there was never a peace signed between North and South Korea. It's strictly an armistice. It was a ceasefire.
Yeah,
that is all that's in place over there.
And they said they're going to walk away from it.
Yeah, they said, hey, you know what? That's going to walk away. But the thing is, they're not just going to walk away. They're going to use precision nuclear striking tool.
Well, and there's a lot of question as to whether or not they say they have something that's capable of hitting our country. There's some experts that said they may actually have the ability to hit Alaska or maybe California, but they certainly have a small enough missile or a decent enough missile to hit South Korea, Japan. There's Guam, I believe, was on one of the lists that I saw of American interests that could be there.
But they didn't come out and say that until 2 days after they talked about ending the armistice with South Korea, and they started getting this even more pressure from the UN, and so that's when they came out and said, well, hey,
all-out war.
Not only that, but now we're going to turn Washington into a sea of fire, or engulf it in a sea of fire.
Yeah. I used to, when the father was in charge, Kim Jong Un, I kind of laughed at them because I'm like, it's just silly North Korea. They're just
silly kids
with their toys. he's bolstered before. He's, said these tough words and, didn't really do anything. And then all of a sudden the kids started coming to the picture, and Mr. Un
accelerated everything.
And accelerated a lot. You had the shelling of the South Korean island.
Yep.
And that's when the sun really started to show up a little bit more. You had the sinking of the South Korean naval ship by a North Korean sub. They said they didn't do it, but, they're mobilizing their troops. I read I always wanted to say this. I read something off the wire today, just before we came on the air, that said, they are mobilizing the troops in the south area. They have a whole bunch of artillery lined up on the DMZ.
And that's actually a technical number. That's a specific number.
A whole bunch.
A whole bunch.
Yeah, no, I think
it's not like
I think it's
or
3
couple.
garrisons, 2 platoons,
it's
some
its own,
heavy
it's
armament.
Its own entity. It's a whole bunch.
And we have, I think, 26,000 American soldiers on the in South Korea as part of our protection of them. That we've already said that if they attack, we will protect South Korea and Japan as a result.
Because Japan's right there in that range also. Yeah, and they definitely
have the artillery to hit Seoul. A lot of people in Seoul, Korea. It concerns me, and I thought about this and stretched it out. So you have North Korea. They've been embargoed, sanctioned for years. They keep making nuclear weapons. This is like the 3rd or 4th.
Well, they're trying to, right?
Yeah, and they're trying to get one small enough to throw in a tip of a
bullet.
Yeah, a slingshot. They just haven't worked out all the logistics yet.
Right, but yeah.
All I picture is the Acme slingshot with Wile E. Coyote, with just pulling it back as far as they can.
While singing Gangnam Style.
I wish I still had Gangnam Style up. But you're killing me tonight, dude. That was awesome. So you have all this, and then I thought to myself, it's funny, there's another country out there that we are writing off that keeps ignoring or somehow sidestepping the UN and all of their embargoes and sanctions and stuff like that, trying to create a nuclear weapon, and that's Iran. So you have these two parallels. Iran's probably, 10 years maybe behind, 5 years maybe behind North Korea, but Iran has better technology than North Korea. They have reverse engineered a lot of things. They have medium-range missiles. So these two are aligned. What do you think these round of sanctions are going to do to North Korea? Nothing.
It's going to embolden them even more. But what's interesting is, God, I just see this guy Un sitting there. I keep having this vision with him and his.
No, if you go any further, we have to pay for it.
And he's got his finger on the button.
Well, and somebody said, South Korea's got a good military and we'd be right there. We're really spread out pretty thin.
I'm curious to see what China would do, if China would let it go. Because, look, we have, remember we talked last week about, or a couple weeks ago, about the Soviet Union, right?
Right.
The Russians. And the couple bombers they've flown.
Yeah, the Bear bombers, Tu-24s, I think.
Yep, by U.S. airspace off California and Alaska. We had the nuclear submarine in the Gulf of Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And we know Russia backs North Korea.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is if this guy Un is going to start using nuclear weapons, even in that local theater of Korea.
I believe we can still call him Lil Kim.
If he starts using that, I'm wondering what the Russians will do. Because if China is authoring sanctions, it sounds like they think this guy is kind of a wingnut also,
mm-hmm.
and they might back off. I wonder if Russia would also and just kind of let us handle it.
Well, and we should, it should be one of those things.
Do you think anybody in the United States has gone to China and say, hey, do you remember in World War II when the Japanese were kicking your butt, how we had some volunteers go over and pretty much save your ass from airstrikes? And
look up Happy Boynton.
And
wasn't he assigned over?
And fight with you guys with the Flying Tigers.
Yeah, Happy Boynton was in the Flying Tigers.
He was one of them.
Yep.
with Chenault.
I know what I'm talking about.
So,
Don't look at me with that eye.
I just had the theme song.
You had the
I just
you
had
had the
theme
raised
song.
eyebrow and the condescending look on your face.
No, that was a nice one. I had the theme song to Baba Black Sheep going on in my head right now. So I'm wondering if somebody whispered in China's ear, said, "Hey, we really, our people kind of really stepped up and helped you out. How's about you kind of maybe back off on the support of this guy?" I doubt it. I'm just throwing it out there.
I doubt they did.
I think China just thinks this guy's stinking crazy.
I think that they know that if he does something insane, if he tries to throw it out to South Korea, if he tries to hit Japan, first of all, if it goes wrong and it's armed and when it hits it goes off, China's right in the middle and they know that. They're not stupid. You know, I've said this before, even with, he might be crazy, but even Kim Jong Un's not stupid. So he could very well be a threat to the region in general. And if the technology fails and it misfires, it still affects that whole region. You know, so it kind of scares me to the point that we need to be more involved in just the UN. You know, we need to really start getting better.
We do not need to be involved in the UN, but that's a whole different argument.
Not with the UN. We need to really start getting involved with the intelligence, and because I don't trust this guy.
Well,
he's
kidding.
a different person than his father, and he is crazy. I guess that's the only word I can think of. I think he's absolutely insane. I think he would try to do something stupid.
Well, he's already showing the signs of it. And again, this guy could, depending what China and Russia does, this guy could completely destabilize
the region even more.
I would say the world.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Because,
well, you start looking at all the other nations that are in turmoil right now, and a lot of them are
can
either
we handle
direct
another
allies.
war?
No. I mean, listen, our guys are good, and we have great technology, and our soldiers are top-notch and unmatched.
So what do we do? You know, we're in the process of pulling out of Afghanistan, correct?
Yes.
But we still have troops over in the Middle East.
Yeah.
What do we do? Can we handle another war? I don't think we can. And this has the potential of if China and Russia backs North Korea militarily, and Japan, the United States, and I think probably Great Britain. What happens if NATO gets activated because of the major threat? You could see a world war. And if look, I'm not saying that as kind of a scare tactic.
No.
But what happens if this guy uses nukes first? Do you think we're not going to respond in kind?
Right.
And if we use nukes on North Korea and that's Russia's ally, is Russia going to launch
and then where
on
would
us?
China go? And then it goes and goes and goes. And listen, we know that Putin is bolstering, and Putin. I think Putin's going to start eventually going off the reservation.
Putin is not a fan of the United States.
Putin's not a fan of anyone but Putin, and people need to remember that.
Well, he
Putin
liked Hugo Chavez,
right? Who fortunately died this week.
Yeah. He was a great leader. There was actually a congressman, I think, that went to his funeral.
Don't even. That is just disgusting to me. But you start looking at all these nations that have splintered away from the norm, if you will, or started calling problems. Russia in the past. China right now is they're kind of toeing the line. But Iran?
China, we're tied to China economically.
Yeah.
And that's I think what's keeping. I think China is scared of a war because we are tied to them economically. But
because if we disappear, they don't have any payback.
Right. And that's why I think China would stay out of it. But Russia's the wild card.
Russia's the wild card. But you look at, if not
Russia
direct,
just say, hey, yeah, go handle it. This guy's freaking nuts.
But you look at direct and indirect allies. So you have North Korea and you have Russia. Mm-hmm. You also have Russia and Syria.
Russia.
I said we also have Russia and Syria, who are allies. You have Syria, Russia, and Iran, North Korea, and China that all deal with Iran. Mm-hmm. So you start having this, if you will, access, and will be the allies for this.
Great game, by the way.
Excellent game.
But we have India.
Yeah.
Israel, depending if they still like us or not. Great Britain. I would think that NATO would have to be enacted. I
absolutely would have to be.
So we'd get Canada, so they'd send their tugboat and their Cessna over.
That's not.
And then we'd have what? What? Their Cessna has a revolver on the front, and then
tied on.
Yeah, the tugboat has a letter of marque. I'm sure
it's a bush plane they used to fly into the Yukon. I'm kidding, my Canadian friends.
I'm not. Thanks for the propeller-driven aircraft over there. We have Mexico. That's great, right? We'd send some cartel people over there.
Right, they'd actually get something done if they'd fight for the right side. They would certainly take care of some small villages, that's for sure. But you start looking at all that, and we are not that far as a world to be away from another major incident. And I think a lot of people overlook that regularly. I think, especially in this country, we don't pay enough attention to world politics and how we fit into that world politics. We're tied to a lot of countries. There are countries
economically.
We're
tied economically to a lot of countries.
Yeah. And there is a few allies out there that we don't have to defend, but it's one of the few times I think, we should defend. Like I said before, Great Britain's always on that list for me. South Korea has been a really good ally of ours for a long time. Israel, and there's a few other ones. So we would get drawn into it, especially because we've already sworn protection to South Korea and North Korea, which brings me back to your question. Do we have the military ability to get dragged into another conflict, even if we're dialing down? Listen, I talked to a friend of mine that's in the military, and I won't say what branch and I won't say his name, but they were supposed to do their regular qualification with their M4 rifles, and it was canceled because they didn't have enough ammunition budgeted. This is the United States military.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to cancel their training because of budget issues. So if that's on a training level, do we have the ability to go? Do we have enough resources militarily to go and deal with a war such as this?
Well, and you bring up a good point. I think what you're alluding to is the economic side of this. Do we have the economic ability to
fund the military that we need? I know we have strategic resources.
Well, not only to fund the military, but do we have the economic ability to build what would need to be built in a large-scale war, like we did in World War II? We would have to get that engine up and running.
Right, we'd have to get the plants on board.
But then how do we do that if China holds a portion of our debt and we borrow from them, and they are somebody now that we're fighting against?
Yeah.
Or we're fighting an ally against theirs.
You know what I think about our debt in China.
Yeah, but this isn't. This is not something that we should take very lightly because China and North Korea are allies. If we go to war with North Korea, China can hurt us economically, and it's not like World War II where we have this huge economic force that we can mobilize to outbuild Germany and Japan and outproduce bombers and ships and everything else. If China calls in that debt, raises interest rates, and cripples us economically, we don't have the means to do those things and to go to war. And that's a big deal.
It is a big deal. And, our Navy's a lot smaller than it used to be.
Yeah. What we do, we tell China we'll pound sand. We're not going to send a debt collector. What's the debt collector going to call the White House?
They're going to
Hi, Barack.
I'm looking for Barack
Obama.
Obama?
Is he there? Oh, wrong number. Are you still at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? What's the next president going to do? He no longer lives here.
He moved out. He didn't leave a forwarding address.
I don't know where to get a hold of him.
Right? That is outstanding.
And it's a caller from like India, one of our allies.
Yeah. Well, we really need to square up.
So what happens? Do we just tell China to pound sand? What are they going to do if we don't pay them? We're not going to pay you.
What are they going to do? Attack us?
Yeah, we're already at war, right?
Are they going to come? Are they going to come repo some things?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Send a tugboat over to take a carrier.
We just.
Hey, the skipper. Hey, I was just leaving it. Where are you going?
No, I swear I paid on it last month. The bank should have had the money already.
Obama, that's my chair.
Hey, that's my drone. Isn't it sad isn't it sad that we actually have to joke about this, but it's a reality. It's not a reality, but it's not far.
It's not far.
It's not that far fetched, and we don't have a plan B. We don't even have the Keystone Pipeline yet.
No.
I don't know.
Russia's got huge oil production.
Yeah, Russia's got big oil production.
So look, they have.
And Russia has a lot of
production.
mothballed things that they could probably get ready relatively quick. And it may be older mothballed things, but they have a lot of stuff in storage.
Oh, well, yeah. Have you ever smelled mothballs?
Oh, yeah.
How'd you get their little tiny legs apart? I'm just.
and
You're totally off your game right now, by the way.
Destroyed me. Exceptional Conservative brought up a good point in our chat room. All of the focus starts to go to North Korea. What does Iran do?
They're going to keep building their weapons.
They're going to start pushing around too. They're going to start pushing back a little bit. So
what do we do if they synchronize an attack where North Korea attacks South Korea and Iran attacks Israel?
Yeah.
What do we do?
Who do we defend? Who can we defend? Militarily, who are we physically able to defend? I know both South Korea and Israel are very competent militarily. However, they would need assistance at some point. Because if Iran goes after Israel, and we've said this before, you're going to have other nations just starting to jump on board that have been waiting.
Look,
if North Korea invades South Korea, they start the violence between the two, there will be some nations that will get on board with them.
Maybe, and that's the thing. We have China that's assisting in authoring these current round of sanctions against North Korea. So if North Korea does not have the backing of China, the fact that China realizes that this guy is perhaps out of his mind, China may be able to persuade Russia to back off, and they may say, hey, this guy's off the reservation. You guys need to do what you need to. We're not going to help you, but we're not going to get involved. You guys work it out. He's not listening to us either.
Yeah, but will and can Putin listen? No. Putin's going to do whatever Putin wants. No,
he will. But here's the thing:
he's already starting to close them out a little bit more. He's bad mouthing us like crazy every chance he gets.
He always does.
He's building his military. He's citing reasons because he wants to protect the Arctic because we're starting to militarize some parts of the Arctic. They do all these test runs for their training because they have to be prepared for the attack from us. So it's going, and he's bolstering. I don't know. He may stay out of it and then do kind of what Russia did, the Soviet Union did during the original Korean War, is just give them
arms.
Yeah, supply
money and arms. Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. If they stay out of it militarily, because hey, look, we're going to be supplying the South Koreans arms, and we're going to be supplying troops to go with that. Also. If they're supplying money and arms, that may help their war effort, but it's not like they're putting their boots on the ground, to where we're not at war with North Korea and now Russia.
Right.
Do you think perhaps we're heading towards another Cold War?
Could very well be, because you're starting to have all these nuclear nations that are forming alliances, if you will.
Yeah, and now you have Putin that seems like, he's going more hardline. He is going hardline against us. And, he is building up militarily and so forth. Do you think we're heading towards another Cold War with him? Because he wants to expand power in that region.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No.
He definitely wants to include some of the old Soviet states. He wants to engulf in Russia and kind of build that again.
Yeah, and I think that's obvious. Everyone knows. I think a lot of people can see that. Not everyone, because we get into that argument on here all the time with certain listeners that say, hey, you know what? Everything's fine. He's just doing his thing. And I'm saying, no. No, Putin, he's old KGB, he's old Soviet, and I think that he sees the type of communism that China has, and I've said this before. He realizes how lucrative it is, and that's the type of communism that he wants to push back to. That's sackhead Sean, professional, uneducated opinion.
Well, no, it does. We talked about this on the show when we talked about the bears coming by our airspace and the
in Guam and
Look, he does. He likes that kind of loose. Or that tightly controlled, restricted free trade, that kind of socialized, over-regulated free trade, but that strict control still on the government, that big administrative
right, and
state.
Sell everything cheap, and he'll outsource so much stuff to or send so many things to Russia, to China and Iran and all those smaller countries. He'll just boost up his production of everything. Like you said, they do have oil reserves, and when it comes down to war, that's one of the biggest needs, because it runs your plants, it runs your vehicles, it runs a lot of things.
And here's the thing about Putin, and a lot of people I don't think realize this. Before 1991, right around 1991, he was a pretty big member, is big into the Communist Party of the Soviet Union.
Yes.
Now, I don't know that he had much choice in that. But now he's part of the United Russia Party.
Yes.
And they say they're like Russian conservative, but they still ascribe to that almost, I call it almost communistic philosophies. But he's not a centrist.
No.
You are just engrossed over there.
No, I'm not. I'm listening.
Okay.
Why, do I ever tune you out?
Yeah.
I couldn't tune you out if I tried.
Look, his thing is, the thing on his party platform is they think that the economy, again, just kind of like China, that it needs a combined state regulation and certain market freedoms.
Right.
With the benefits to, just redistribute to those who are less fortunate. Weird. Sounds familiar.
It's almost like another government's trying to do that. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. Go on. I feel like we're seeing this somewhere else in history, or current day history. What's modern history? Doesn't matter. What's important is there's somebody else out there trying to do it too.
Exactly.
Well,
I'm done.
You look at the history of Russia, and you look at when the communists took over and the power that they held for a long time, and then when Gorbachev and a couple other ones in the Russian government saw that their people were suffering so much in communism, that's why they stopped, is because they ran out of money, they ran out of stuff. They had to start working with the outside world in order to even survive. They need a lot of resources in that country just because of the demographic and the way it's where it's located. So that's part of it. It wasn't because they necessarily wanted to become great citizens in the world and be friends.
Well, no, why did they run out of money? Because the Constitution said, free housing,
right.
For everybody, education for everybody.
There's no doubt about it. So they got away from that because they needed to open up trade. Now, they think basically, I believe, that they can do this whole communism thing. Oh yeah, everybody still has education and healthcare and all these wonderful things. But in order for us to make money, we're going to incorporate some levels of the free market in there. Yeah.
Because us controlling absolutely everything didn't work the first time around.
And that was
that's why it's communism light.
That was about the time that China started to really move in that direction. They started to really get to that whole quote-unquote free market. They
had to, because they had to take Hong Kong back.
Right. We run all the business, but we'll let you keep a little of it, so you will keep working and actually be produced. And China also copies everything they possibly can because it's hard to get them to not copy it, just because of the laws over there, and they don't care about outside patents and stuff like that. So I think they saw that, and Putin says, yeah, you know what, that's a good idea. We screwed it up the first time. We let it fall away. But you know what? He's starting the anti-American rhetoric a lot. He's starting to
have the motherland back.
He's starting to do that propaganda a little bit. He's riding around on bears shirtless with a shotgun. He's doing everything.
Which I kind of like.
He's doing everything that says that he's going to do that.
Batshit crazy.
The batshit crazy power grab at some point. So when you ask me where Russia will go with North Korea, you never know. They may jump right in and say, hey, you know what? You're our friends. Now they're in a state of war. He has to take total control of the, kind of like, what's the thing that we keep saying will never happen here? Oh, yeah, we declare martial law. I believe they have a version of that. And then, boom, he can just shoot it, dissolve the Senate, dissolve whatever their house is. I think I don't remember what it's called. But he could possibly do that. And if he has the military on board with it,
I would agree
it'll be a lot easier.
Happened at some point sometime before in history. What?
Sorry, I was just thinking of a time in history that made me laugh.
Der Fuhrer?
Who?
What?
What?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the guy who was an art major?
Never mind. Yeah, he was like an architect, or thought he was an architect or something, and then failed a lot.
Yeah, that guy. Listen, all this is possibilities, but we have to start really paying attention to this as well. I don't appreciate the fact, and I know the White House has the stance of they don't really respond to what North Korea says because they almost think that North Korea is like a little kid, and when they act out and they respond, it's going to get the attention they think they deserve. However, the reality of the situation is at some point we need to respond. We need some sort of legitimate response with North Korea outside of the sanctions because, as we've learned, the United Nations is useless and the sanctions do nothing.
Why?
And for a nation that gets sanctioned so much, somehow they keep getting all this stuff.
Why doesn't the media say, hey, you know what? This guy said this, but here's really the danger with that. All they said is, hey, this guy said this, and the White House, Jay the Carney, said, yeah, we got stuff to deal with that.
Sorry.
Right? Yeah, we can deal with that.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, we got this.
It's not
a big deal.
Yeah, we can defend ourselves. I'm not saying we can't defend ourselves against a long-range missile. I almost 100% believe in our technology, not 100%, but we
that came from China.
that we
sold to China.
That
was Clinton.
One
Never
of the
mind.
two. Doesn't matter.
I don't remember.
And
exactly.
We also right now have the ability to throw up a bunch of them and hope one of them finally hits. Okay, I'm a little bit, but the fact that there's no response and that the president's not coming out and say, hey, you know what, North Korea, go pound sand. You want to turn us into a sea of fire? I dare you. But I'll tell you right now, you won't live to see morning. So knock the crap off and go away. Because we're not going to deal with this anymore. I don't care about the UN. I don't care about any of that crap. You harm us or you harm South Korea, we will come down on you so hard you won't know what happened. And then if that's on a Monday, by Tuesday afternoon when it's just a smoking hole in the ground, we're going to be home having margaritas.
And after all that, I want to hear him say, Mr. Man.
Mr. Man.
Yeah.
And then I want to see him do the Gangnam Style dance. And with the sequester, it really upsets me that I can't go tour the White House and hang out with the Obamas like I wanted to. So I'm going to have to find other plans for my vacation.
Well, the sequester has, it didn't have to affect that, did it?
Oh,
that's weird.
Weird.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we have 2 minutes left in the show.
You know what? We didn't even get to the Center for Disease Control guy that got hammered by Congress because when Obama proposed, like 77 million in cuts or whatever. We can't. Yeah, we can totally make the vaccines for kids work. And now, the cut is half that, and they're like, no vaccines for kids. And Congress, forget the committee that called them on the carpet for it. They were like, hey, wait a second. So when it was here, you could have done that, but now you're saying you can't. And he was like, yeah.
What do you call it?
I wanted to get that. We didn't have a chance. Hey, listen, we had a lot to get to tonight.
We did. We got through most of it.
At times, man.
It moved right along.
It moved, but it felt like we didn't even really...
I know. We only scratched the surface, but we only have 2 hours. We'll do it again next week.
We will. It was good to see you, sir.
Nice to see you. Thank you for everyone to listen. Check us out, sackheadsradio.com. Check out the Hillsdale College banner when it finally goes up. Listen to the podcast. Check out Hillsdale College. Thank you so much, Hillsdale, for partnering with us. Go to Facebook.com/SackheadsRadio. We're on Twitter @Sackheads. I'm going to close the show with the Constitution Minute by Hillsdale, and we'll see you all next Friday night, 10:30, same batshit crazy time, same batshit crazy place. Thanks for listening.
Hello, I'm Lori, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Dr. Larry Arnn on how the founders viewed God as the source of our equality and legal rights.
America's founders knew, obviously, that human beings are not equal in terms of strength or beauty, or in terms of intelligence, industry, or talents. They understood that because of such differences in talents and things like that, some people would be wealthier than others. But human beings are equal, the founders believe, in their possession of natural rights, such as the rights to life, liberty, and property. Today, many Americans reject this equality of rights in order to pursue equality of condition through redistribution, or spreading the wealth around, to use a famous formulation. This is destructive of liberty as the founders understood it.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.